Age-old question, how does the bus driver get off the bus and who shuts the door? Well, here's a better question. How does the whole door system work? This is a 2008 International RE with the engine in the back. As you see, I have it all took apart, but I just fixed this door system, so I'm going to show you exactly how it works. So on this one, instead of a normal valve, we have the valve electronics. So you see this switch? This switch is wired into this solenoid. This solenoid, it is basically just a magnet which is connected to this valve right here. This is our primary air line. You see we have pressure in the system. Primary air line runs into this valve right here, which releases it. It changes direction. Now, mind you, this whole piece was bypassed and I had to replace it, and then I had to actually flip some of this around to get it to work again. But this will allow it to release. You can see that no pressure is in the door. And when I flip that switch, this solenoid engages, it flips the valve and sends pressure in. And you can see on our regulator right here, the pressure will go up as it slams shut. So now there is pressure in the door. And that is how the driver gets off. On these Internationals, whenever you turn off the ignition, because that's electronic, it will go off. Now, mind you, when it doesn't have pressure in the system, if that switch is left down and then you get off the bus while it builds air, it will slam shut on you. So on these ICs, you got to look out for that. Now, we have our master regulator right here. I also had to replace that, and you see the mount for it too. That's why it's yellow and it looks older. I have the other one right here, actually. That's what the original one looks like in this bus. But what it does is it controls all the air that is in the system, all the pressure. So right now you see I got that at like 30 pounds. If I jack that up, then what you'll see is a whole lot more air. It'll slam more. Not as much on the open and close, but still. So we'll just go ahead and we'll turn that back down. See, it had trouble when I adjusted that pressure, it had trouble releasing. But now we're good. We just want to go ahead and turn that back down. Hold on. There we go. Okay. So now our airline runs this way into our, I don't know what the technical name for this is, but this controls open and close, as you see, our master airline. And then, so there's two solenoids right here. As I said, solenoid is a magnet that when electricity is sent to it, it engages and it controls a valve. So there's two valves on this, as you can see. There's one for open and there's one for close. So if I were to actually unplug one of these, I can't too easily on this one. Like I can feel that this is hot right here. Just from that valve, from it being on close. Whenever a solenoid is engaged because of that electricity, it'll get hot. Then you have two regulators right here. So this valve controls which way air goes into the cylinder, as you can see that. So it goes one way for open, and it goes the other way for close. Okay. So then we have these two regulators right here, which control the speed of open and close. So if I just turn that up, see that thing flying open? And then if I turn this one up for close, it will slam shut. But we have these adjusted. I'm going to have to turn up the close one later, but I have to separate these two and then tighten it down. Now, so we have the cylinder, okay, this controls which way it goes. Those wires are obviously connected to that main door switch on the panel. So, we see the cylinder goes right here. How does it control the door? Well, if you see, this bracket is on the other end to where when the cylinder goes up, it can pull it, and it pulls it out because of that angle. If you know anything about, angles, you see it pulls it out. Now we have this one that is further towards the middle of the door, and the door pulls it. Instead of this going in, that part goes out. It pulls this rod. This rod is connected to the other door, which kind of like the cylinder. It goes out. So whenever the door is open, it is pulled and it pulls it out. Kind of see just like the cylinder. You see how it's like that. It goes out to the right. Well, how that works, when this is on, because these are on different parts of the door, this is over this way, that is towards the middle. When this pulls that way, when that door goes the other way, because this is out, going the other direction, it will pull the door, it will pull this part at the angle, pulls it this way. You go out. So just a quick, I guess, physics lesson, sort of. You can see, I might as well demonstrate. Same, when it pushes that in that way, it pushes this going that way and controls the other door. So how much these are actually separated, you can adjust this rod, and you'll see right here, when this door fully shuts, how is the other one open? Well, it just has this little bit of point that the rod doesn't pull or push, but it just swings. So this is a little point of tension, and it will hold the door shut. So sometimes, can you see that tension a little bit? And so sometimes when the door is delayed in opening, that's what it is. It has to get back past that little part of tension, you see? And then it'll start to go. And you can adjust that just so it can hold the door shut too. Because sometimes without that tension, these doors won't stay shut, like on their own, whenever they're released. But it has that little bit of tension, so, and you can see it break past. And so it's not always pulling and pushing, because these are obviously able to rotate, because it's having to do that the whole time. It can just swing back and forth. It can't be too long. It can't be too short. If this rod is too short, then what will happen is, because this pulls this way, if it's too short, then these doors will get closer together and eventually shut on each other, kind of while it's out. So this has to be in perfect adjustment. Same with all of these valves. It can't be too fast. It can't be too slow. If it is like that, then it will cause problems. So all of this is in pretty perfect adjustment. I don't like how slow the door closes right now. Ever since I replaced that regulator, it's been a little bit different, so I'm going to adjust it a little bit. But right now, it's pretty perfect. So just a full demonstration of the door operating. That's how it works. Again, you can see that rod. You can see about everything in action. If you look at that little pressure regulator, you can actually see it change too. Sorry, my camera lens is busted. I've got a new one on order, but look. Just the pressure changing as it operates. But again, one last operation just so you can see all the moving parts of this and how it works. So to answer the age-old question, because now you know how all this works, all you do, like I said, because, once this is open, the door stays open because it has that pressure in the system. Like if I open it, and I go to get off, and you wonder who shuts the door, because you can't shut it. And obviously, I can't just hit that switch and run out. So, like I showed you, all that is just the pressure in the door. So starting back to the very beginning, this part that I had to spend hours on replacing a bunch of components, the release. All you do, emergency release. Most of the time, if it's not on an IC, it'll usually be a manual valve just hooked in, maybe like this, or maybe a little switch you see. All it does is it just lets air in and out, because I have this as a temporary on this. All you do is you flip the switch and you allow the pressure to release out of the door. Now there's no pressure. get off. You can close that door and you can see that little bit of tension too, just kind of holding it shut. And that, my friends, is how the bus driver shuts the door. Or I guess answering the question, who shuts the door when the bus driver gets off? The bus driver, because all they do is release it. When they get back on, because obviously this switch can't work. You can hear the solenoid clicking, but it can't work if there's no pressure in the system. They just engage it back. And that won't work unless there's air pressure in the system. But that is how bus doors work. Again, this was a 2008 IC RE. There's a lot of different systems, how this works between Bluebird and Thomas and the different years of IC. Like in 2013, they completely ditched this. They got rid of this linkage rod and then it connected a different way, which really was a bad move on IC. And then they had problems with their doors coming open. Mind you, this doesn't have that problem because of the tension and just how well engineered this is. Why they changed it, I don't know. But then they created another problem for themselves. So now they have the 3rd generation IC, where there's 2 individual cylinders, or 2 for electric doors. Motors, they have 2 different motors for each door, and then they have locking mechanisms. It is over-engineered, because all you really need is just air in the cylinder and this simple linkage rod. This is the most simple system there is. My only gripe, again, is just how that is electronic, and that is just not directly connected to a valve that is up here. Other than that, if this weren't electronic, this would be the perfect system. It is literally just a cylinder connected right to the door with a linkage rod, and it opens and shuts perfectly. But that, my friends, is how the bus doors work. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I'm sorry that I don't post much. Right now I'm working on this one. As you see, I'm getting the AC working, which I can document that in a whole other way. But at one point, the dome lights on this side quit working, and I have narrowed it down to the wiring somewhere between this harness back there and that harness where it connects. And then this is the AC system. I've got it all. I'm working on it. Yes, I hear the belt squeak. We've got to replace the belt. But I really hope that you enjoyed this video. This is LB105. But yeah, thanks for watching. And if anyone wants to comment on that, that is just for insurance purposes, because the bus hasn't been on lease in 60 days. So just can't drive it outside of the property. It's fine. But I hope that you enjoyed. Like I said, stay safe, everyone. Hope to have more uploads. Bye.